peer pressure,
depression,
suicide. The three most common
or deadly.
the silent killers among us. Just like smoking and vaping,
It may feel kind of harmless right now.
but its side effects are deadly if you don't get rid of it. But what is the root cause of it all?
How do we recognize each illness?
How do we overcome according to what God says in the Bible? You see, peer pressure is like expectations and temptations. For us young ones, we face peer pressure every single day. When we're at home, parents expect us to be obedient, even when they're wrong. My mum, for example, whenever she's mad, she'll ask me a question, but I don't answer just in case she thinks I'm talking back to her. But if I do answer, she'll look at me and go, "Why are you being cheeky to me for? Don't give me the attitude and don't talk back to me." Most of the times, they expect us to do things without showing us how to do it. Go cook dinner the way I cook dinner, but I don't even know how to cook. Go clean the house the way I clean, but you're always on your phone. If we don't meet those expectations, we fail. And when we fail, we get into trouble. At school, teachers expect us to pass every single subject, but there's so many of us and only one teacher. He or she can only do what they can. For slow learners, they get left behind. Again, expectations are not met, therefore we fail. Then, there's peer pressure among friends. If we're not up to the latest fashion or not up to the latest trends, we get labeled and bullied. But what is the root cause for peer pressure? Fear. We're afraid to make one mistake because we're scared our parents might be disappointed. We're afraid to fail because we're scared that we might not get accepted somewhere else. And I don't want to get bullied. Do you? So how do we recognize if one is being pressured? By our behavior. If I'm a chatty person and all of a sudden I go quiet, then something is wrong. If I dress up a certain way and all of a sudden I dress up like I worship the devil, then something is definitely wrong. Recognize the change in our behaviors and you'll know something is wrong. But what does God say to do when we're being pressured and we know that something is wrong? Proverbs 4:14-16 says, "Do not enter in the path of the wicked and do not walk in the way of evil. Avoid it. Do not travel on it. Turn away from it and pass on. For they who do not sleep unless they have done evil, and their sleep is taken away unless they make someone fall." So how do we overcome peer pressure? 1, do not enter. If you see a burning building, would you enter? No, because it's safe. So why put yourself in that position in the first place? 2, avoid it. If someone would offer you drugs, would you still take it knowing it could kill you? No, avoid it. 3, turn away from it. If you don't benefit from it, just turn around and keep walking in the opposite direction.
No one really thinks how easy it could be to fall into the steep hole of depression that is filled when you're overwhelmed from the pressure from anyone and everyone, and when a situation doesn't go how you want it to go. Depression is this problem that really holds many of you sitting here today back. Depression can be filled when our feelings become intense. It can happen through financial situations or when there's no middle ground in your marriage. Depression starts as young as us. It can come through the way you look or how the way you act is looked down on by others. It can be it ends up to us feeling that we're not good enough for anyone. And this leads us to feeling like we're not needed anymore. But what fuels all of this? Your fear and lack of faith. Hebrews 11:6 reads, "Without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anybody who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him." The Bible reads, Matthew 11:28-30, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Amen. Think of it, when your child is sad, what's their first instinct? It's to run back to their parents, right? Shouldn't we do the same? Deep down, many of us in here still have that child in us that runs us back to mom and dad when things go down. But when there's no mom and dad, there's only one thing that's waiting for you ever since the beginning, and that's God. God is bigger than any of the problems you have. Turn to Him and give it to Him, because there's nothing too big for God. And He will let you rest.
If you don't turn to God to resolve your depression, then sadly I will have turned to suicide. From fear to lack of faith to hopelessness equals suicide. There are people in the Bible who at some point probably thought of suicide, and God showed us through them how to overcome. For example, Solomon, in his pursuit of pleasure, reached the point where he hated life. Elijah was fearful and depressed and yearned for death. Jonah was so angry at God that he wished to die. Even Paul and his missionary companions at one point were under pressure, far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired life itself. However, none of these men committed suicide. Solomon learned to fear God and keep His commandments, for this is a duty for mankind. Elijah was comforted by an angel, was allowed to rest, and given a new commission. Jonah received admonition and rebuke from God. Paul learned that although the pressure he faced was far beyond his ability to endure, the Lord can bear all things. This happened that we might not rely on ourselves, but on God, who raises the dead. Trust God.
Lean not on your own understanding. To God be the glory.
Amen.